The classic Chevrolet L88 is more than just a car, it's a mechanical myth, a four-wheeled fire breather born in an era when seatbelts were optional, traction control was a prayer, and horsepower was measured with a wink and a nod. The L88 Corvette, introduced in 1967 and produced through 1969, was never meant for the faint of heart, or really, for public roads at all. It was a track-ready monster disguised in a Corvette body, sold to just enough people to keep the race teams fed, and wrapped in so much mystery that even GM engineers joked it came with a warning label instead of a brochure. But according to a recently discovered set of Farsi engineering notes allegedly uncovered in an old Midwestern barn inside a rusted-out vending machine, the original L88 wasn't just a high-compression, big block beast, it was a borderline outlaw project developed after hours by a rogue group of GM engineers nicknamed the Midnight Mule Team. Their mission: build a car so powerful that it could take on Ferraris at Le Mans on Sunday and still scare the pants off dealership mechanics on Monday. And that's how the legendary Phase 3 L88 was born, a secret version of the already untamed L88 that was said to produce over 600 horsepower, despite GM officially rating the car at 430 HP to scare off insurance companies and the unworthy. According to the Farsi files, the Phase 3 L88 had internals so overbuilt, it could survive a nuclear winter and then outrun the blast wave. It featured forged aluminum pistons, a hand-ported aluminum cylinder head, and a carburetor so large it was banned from being displayed in showrooms due to visual intimidation. The ignition system was lifted straight from a fighter jet, and it had a secondary cooling pump that would only activate when the engine temperature crossed 220 degrees Fahrenheit, which was often. The exhaust system, straight piped from the factory, but cleverly disguised with fake muffler covers just to make it past inspection. The clutch pedal felt like you were leg pressing a refrigerator, and the 4-speed manual gearbox had no synchros in third because, apparently, real drivers shouldn't need help shifting at redline. One of the rare surviving test drivers from that era once joked that the car didn't shift gears, it demanded sacrifices. Even starting it was a ritual. Pump the gas 3 times, say a prayer, twist the key, and brace for impact. When the big block V8 roared to life, it wasn't so much a sound as it was a controlled detonation. The hood would visibly shake, birds would flee the area, and local dogs would mysteriously start howling even if they lived a mile away. Driving the L88 wasn't just an experience, it was a test of character. If you didn't respect it, it would spin you into the weeds before you could finish shifting into second. If you did respect it, you'd discover a brutal kind of beauty, the way it squatted under full throttle, the way it twitched under hard braking, and the way it made every other car on the road feel like a toy. It had no air conditioning, no radio, and no power steering, not because Chevy couldn't install them, but because the engineers didn't want any distractions. They believed if you were driving an L88, you needed all your senses engaged, especially your sense of fear. In a time when most cars on the road made around 200 horsepower, the L88 was a missile in a field of kites. Street races became local legends. Tales spread of L88s running 10-second quarter miles on slicks with nothing more than open headers and a driver brave enough to hold on. There was even a rumored incident where an L88 outran a police helicopter, though that was later downgraded to urban myth when the pilot confessed he backed off because that car just didn't seem street legal. Only about 200 real L88s were ever built, but if you believe the rumors, there were at least a dozen Black Ops models made with experimental parts, magnesium intake manifolds, prototype racing fuel cells, and dashboards wired with military-grade toggle switches labeled things like boost, panic, and do not press. One Farsi story even claims that one of these ultra-rare L88s was buried in the desert during a secret GM racing program shutdown, and to this day, treasure hunters still comb the sands near Nevada looking for it, armed with old bin records and hope. Collectors now treat the L88 like holy relics, with auction prices soaring past $3 million for clean examples, though, ironically, the original engineers would probably laugh at that. To them, it wasn't about rarity or investment value. It was about building the fastest, loudest, most unapologetically American machine possible and slipping it through the cracks before the suits upstairs caught on. The 1969 L88 was the final version, and by then, the government was cracking down, emissions rules were tightening, and the party was coming to an end. But for a brief moment, just a few short years, the L88 Corvette roamed free, unfiltered and ungovernable, leaving black stripes on pavement and legends in its wake.